Linking on my brain. Okay. Linking on my brain. I got linking on my brain.
Duty, but it's back. I got bit by the bug again. A lot of the changes they've made with Modern Warfare make the series feel fresh again. A lot of the changes are great, and it's got my heart pumping in a way that a game hasn't been able to do since I first stormed the beaches of Normandy in Call of Duty 2. In many ways, I look at this game as a return to form. A game that brings everything back to baseline while still moving forward. No jetpacks, no Terminators, just modern combat. But it's not without its issues, like the campaign, for instance. It's too violent. It makes war look too violent. Won't someone think of the children? No, multiplayer does have its problems, which brings us to realism mode. It mitigates a lot of the issues people have, like time to kill, and the weird always-on radar that only shows friendlies, and the compass that shows enemies. And it even helps against campers. Can I get an amen? So yeah, it addresses a lot of those things, except for footsteps and callouts. Nothing's fixing that, except for Infinity Ward, and they ain't fixing it yet! This mode and gunfight are the best experiences I've had in any recent Call of Duty. Realism mode just works so well for what this game is doing. Here's the rundown. There's no HUD except for blue friendly indicators, UAV, and this little white dot that tells you when your field upgrade is ready. Time to kill is the same as core, except headshots, which are insta-kill. On paper, that's ridiculously straightforward, but in practice, this game mode is much more than that. You would think time to kill would be more like hardcore, with an extremely low time to kill, and some people argue that realism should have that. But realism mode is not meant to be hardcore 2.0, and I would argue that core time to kill, which is already fast, with insta-kill headshots, helps facilitate skill-based play. Call me crazy, but I like this system in realism. You are rewarded for headshots, not body shots. I mean, the speed at which you shoot is still paramount, but going for the head is preferable to just shooting anywhere. It also gives slightly less of an advantage to campers because body shots aren't insanely low time to kill like in hardcore. Again, slightly less. They can still go for headshots, and time to kill is already quite low, but it's definitely a difference. As for the other big difference for realism mode, the HUD, in realism, UAVs still work, friendlies have a blue dot, but other than that there's no HUD. Enemies have no name tags, nothing to highlight them. Outside of uniforms, the blue dot is how you tell them apart. As for kill streaks, ammo, and gear, you'll just need to remember what you've got, but your field upgrade has this little white dot that tells you when it's ready. No HUD is something that changes the game way more than you would think. There's nothing to pull you out of the zone. No kill feed, no hit markers, no notifications, no distractions. Just focus on the kill and adapting to situations. Plus, no one has an artificial edge with the compass instantly showing them where enemies are, including campers, which love that thing. The normal slot machine-esque HUD is actually pretty intrusive and you don't have any options to tweak it. What I'm about to say may sound a little extreme, but bear with me for 30 seconds. We murder the HUD designers. Oh boy, I've been playing too much Call of Duty. No, I've been playing Call of Duty Mobile religiously since its release. In my opinion, it's the best mobile game out there. It's not perfect. I mean, aside from Paul Dano's performance in There Will Be Blood, what is? But it's damn good, and Kid Me would have killed for a free, full-featured Call of Duty that I can play anywhere. He might be confused on the concept of loot boxes, it's a little ahead of his time, but it's a damn good mobile game regardless. Being that it's a game designed for a 6-inch screen, the big honkin' red lights on enemies is understandable, as is the big honkin' red name tag above their head when I'm aiming directly at them. But playing on a screen anywhere from 24 to 65 inches, and the Call of Duty HUD feels a little dated now. It kind of feels like a mobile game HUD. I warned you it would sound extreme. But let's get back to the facts. For most people, a lot of the HUD is unnecessary, which would be okay if you could adjust it, but you can't. And while it is a shame to cover up this gorgeous game, no HUD affects more than that. Take hit markers, which you don't really think about, but without hit markers, unless you see the body drop, you don't really know they're dead. most of the time that kill sound is drowned out by ambient noise. So if you're shooting a guy as he dips into a building or around a corner, you have no way of knowing the situation. That's fun to me. But if that's too much, you can roll back to the classic Call of Duty kill sound, which is a lot more discernible. Isn't it nice to have options? It would be nice if we could toggle elements of the HUD to the level of Ubisoft games, but you can't. And in a way, it's nice that everyone is always on the same playing field in that regard, I suppose. But those name tags, I don't know what those are for. I guess to have an archenemy? The weird thing is, in Call of Duty Mobile, to see the name tag, you have to aim directly on their body. But in Call of Duty Modern Warfare, your crosshair just has to be near them. And boom! There's the neon sign! I don't like that. I also don't like the compass showing you wherever an enemy is firing, even if they have a suppressor. I think that sucks. Regardless, you don't need any of these things. The sound design in this game is outstanding, and the lack of HUD encourages leaning into it. It's tactile, it's realistic, except for the boots, which are somehow louder than the scary maze jump scare. Don't worry, I'm not gonna do it. But my boots, sometimes if they echo back at me like in a corridor, it sounds like an enemy. They're so goddamn loud. Anyway, the sound design isn't the only realistic thing. The game looks incredibly good. It's rich with detail, and I will say that this inevitable march towards photorealism comes at a price. Modern Warfare looks pretty damn realistic, and it's getting harder and harder to distinguish people from the environment. It's getting real tough! In shooters, I have this irresistible urge, this impulse to keep moving, move or die. But in this case, it's more move and die. There are an awful lot of people that like to sit in corners near doors. So it's nice when they don't have a compass. They can listen, sure, but it's not literally telling them your exact direction visually, which you can't hide, not even with a suppressor. They also have less of an advantage than they would in hardcore mode, unless they aim for the head. But if they could do that well, they probably wouldn't be camping. Something I've noticed is that people do play differently in realistic. I'm not sure what it is or why that is exactly. It changes your experience, sure, but should it change how you play to the point where it's noticeable, even with all the different people you play against? I've noticed this consistently across every match. I certainly feel realism mode is easier than core, somehow. Maybe it's that goddamn compass. I think maybe the HUD has become too big of a part of gameplay in Call of Duty. Anyway, to summarize my feelings, realism is like a conduit for the best details Modern Warfare introduces and has to offer. Get ready for the dumbest comparison I could possibly think of, but it's like looking at your phone when you're out in the wilderness, instead of just being in the element. It's not just no HUD, it's a lifestyle. No, that's silly, but seriously, it's like when Bruce Wayne traveled for 7 years discovering his Zen and getting trained as a super ninja by Ra's al Ghul. Wait, is that more or less silly? In any case, it's an excellent game mode. But in any case, it's an excellent game mode, but as with everything, realism mode is like a good Chinese meal. You have the sweet and the sour. It's a lot of fun to play, and that's the sweet, but you can only play it with Team Deathmatch. And of course, that's the sour. But do you know what isn't a Chinese meal? Squarespace. Not only is it literally not a Chinese meal, but it's also not one metaphorically, because it's all sweet. Thanks for watching, guys. If you enjoyed, leave a like or subscribe, and check the end screen now for more videos like this. But as always, stay frosty. As always, stay frosty, and I'll see you next time.
Brava na ponta da